She might go crazy wanting to get in here too. Yep.
You got 2 minutes to maybe get them some chilies or something.
Get them a greenie. They love greenies, don't they? We're so excited that you've joined us for today's live stream presented by RVtravel.com. Today's program will begin shortly. While we allow some time for others to join, we want to take care of a few housekeeping items. Everything presented in this live stream is true to the very best of our knowledge and experience, but we are human. Occasionally, we might be wrong. We don't want you spending thousands of dollars simply because we said something was good or fixing something according to what we suggested. Do your research, check your owner's manual, and seek assistance from your vetted and trustworthy certified RV technician.
So during our live stream, it's only going to get better if you participate. We'd love to hear from YOU. So while you're tuning into the show, please let us know what kind of rig you have, where you currently reside, if you're a part-timer, if you're a full-timer, and most importantly, what technical questions can we help you with? Feel free to submit your questions throughout the show. You can even start that right now.
During today's live stream, we may show you what we like to call cool tools. These are tools and gadgets that we actually use and we believe will be helpful to you. If you are interested in learning more about these products, please see the YouTube description box for more information.
During today's live stream, we will be doing a giveaway. To be included in the drawing, be sure to include a hashtag on the screen in your comments during the live stream. So let's get started.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Talking RV Tech. We've got Dustin Simpson here from California RV Specialties. Ashley's in the background. Zach is not here tonight with us. It is his wife's birthday, so happy birthday, Mrs. Zach. And he's doing something special for her. And I'm your host, Dave Solberg, and welcome. We have Michael Nerger has joined us already right at the 6 o'clock p.m. in my time. I am Central Standard Time, and he has Motorhomes 2004. Didn't say what brand, but we're looking for Barbara. Last week we had, who else do we have, Dustin?
Oh, gosh. We had a lot of people. I can't think of all the names offhand.
Well, and I just got a little cloudy, and Dustin's got a little touch of the flu going on or something going. But just to let you know, I went up to Wisconsin on Monday and picked up a unit that we are doing some renovating work on. It was a little 26-foot Salem it was. And so I weighed it. First of all, it was 4,000 pounds. Brought it back with my half-ton pickup, which supposedly lists 11,200 pound towing capacity. And I got 7 miles a gallon coming back towing that thing. No wind. Minneapolis down to Iowa, so pretty straight shot. You know, there's a few little 3% grades and stuff like that. So the little half-ton is not a real good tow vehicle for almost anything. So here we got Michael then says, quickest tips, drive, need help. I'm not sure exactly what that means, Michael. Quickest tips, drive, need help. Give us a little bit more information. We would appreciate it, Michael. We may be able to help you. Now we've got from Facebook, doesn't say who it is, but a 2020 Holiday Rambler, Vacationer, 35K, gas coach, part-timer from Southeast Michigan. CT's here, back. Welcome from Montana. And we hopefully get Calvin in tonight. Calvin's been emailing back and forth with some questions. We got Terry Hayes from San Diego. He's got a 2018 Arctic Fox 34 fifth wheel. I want to learn more. Yes, that's great. You came to the right place. I don't have any issues at this time, but I'm sure I will. I'll have a 7-month, 15,000 mile trip next year. Wow. I would say dig into everything you possibly can find. If you've got an Arctic Fox fifth wheel, Again, we've shown this many times. Get one of these. This is a infrared thermometer, and it will tell you the exact temperature, 93.2. And I was doing this a little early. I'm just glad this doesn't do IQ as well. But the thing you want to do with that is, as you're doing your 15,000 mile trip next year, make sure once a day, every time you stop at a gas station, fueling station, whatever, check the temperature of the hubs, check the temperature of the brake drums and the tires, just so you know what's going on in there. You know, you should repack those bearings once a year, or 15,000 miles they recommend, but I like to have those checked constantly, so I just know what's going on. Now, I checked the ones on that rig I brought back here, and it was 41 degrees outside, so it was a little cool. And those things were running right at about 65 degrees. So you will see a 20 to 30 degree temperature rise in that. But when you see that thing spike and it gets up into the 100, 120 range or higher, then you know those bearings are really starting to work heavy and probably need to be repacked. And I tell you what, it is a lot cheaper to repack those bearings inside a service center than it is on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And I have done both. So
it's a good idea to get tire minders.
yes.
And also, if you can find out what size the axle is, there's a data tag that's on the axle. I usually tell somebody, if they're going to take a long trip, go to your local RV repair shop or, dealership, get a wheel bearing kit just to have, one single kit as backup.
Yep.
You never know in case something happens, something burns up.
Yep. And tires.
Yep.
Not just one, but anyway, sometimes it's hard to find the right size tire on the road if you need more than one. So I see Calvin is in. Hey, Calvin, nice to meet you virtually. We've been emailing back and forth, and Calvin has a Aldi system that he was having some issues with, and you can see some of the posts. We did a couple different letters on that one. That's on a 30-foot Rockwood tag along 2021. Jason here then has, here we are. He was about to Eternabond my RV roof, a Grand Design image. Bought everything, tape, primer, etc. Saw your video yesterday on why I shouldn't and plan returning everything. What brand self-leveling sealant? And that must have been your video, Dustin?
Yeah. So yesterday we released a video, or I think it was the day before. I'm still kind of on the tail end of recovering from COVID. And so he's either on a Grand Design group that I belong to, or he's in our Grand Design RV What's in the Shop group. And Dave, I posted a video where we had a customer from what was in just in one of our groups that Ashley randomly picked and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And the owner took a Turnabond tape and just covered every seam on the roof on a brand new coach. So, I went into detail why I felt like you shouldn't do that. And it's gone pretty viral. I think right now it's maybe been out for 36, 48 hours, and it's got about 11,000 views so far. But so that's a good thing to do, Jason. Don't turn up on your tape. Don't turn up on your roof. Basically, to me, or if somebody's looking at it at a resale value, you're devaluing it. As Dave knows, once you put that stuff on, you're not getting it off.
It does not come off. In fact, I got if I set this on the desk for about 15 minutes, I pulled some of the wood off the desk.
Yeah. So Dave, what they were doing is there was an owner that lived in his coach full time. For whatever reason, somebody told him to go up there and to Turnabond every seam, the side seams, everything with it. He went right over the top of the lap sill, and I don't know how well he cleaned it, but that video got seen 1.3 million times. And then he did a follow-up video a year later. And, it's just, and on a repair side of it, if you were going to go pull something off of the coach, so skylights are going to go bad, vents are going to go bad, plumbing vents are going to go bad. If you decide to upgrade something, now the consumer is going to spend more money to try to take that stuff loose. And if you went, just like you said, you pull it off of the table and rip the wood off, some of the people that were giving me backlash on it were like, oh, it won't tear the roof. And I was actually taking samples of TPO and showing them how thick they were compared to like the size of a dime, with all the measurements and all that on there too, Dave.
That is a this
Thin
one
as a
happens
dime.
to be the Dyflex, but it's very similar. That's your roof material, like a TPO. And I
Yeah.
had a sample of one somewhere. Where did I put those? Anyway,
So
yeah, and I guess the thing about Turnabond is, it's like so many things in the RV industry. You can get 100 different opinions on likes to dislikes, and works wonderful and everything. And in case of an emergency in a small little area, I'm all for it. I think it's a thing. But when you're looking at a brand new coach, it should have proper sealant in there. It should be visually inspected a few times a year. And I think what happens is, like too many things, is you post a question, you ask a question about something, and people go in and go, oh, you got to turn about that whole thing. Those seams leak like crazy. Well, they don't leak initially like crazy. They eventually, I don't care what manufacturer it is. You think about your house. And I asked this question when I'm doing my RV buyer seminar, who's built a house? And, they raised their hand, and I said, okay, so when you got done with your house, you didn't have a single punch list for any of the subcontractors. You didn't have the drywaller, the painter, the landscaper. You expect that with a house, and they're using the same materials. And so what happens in the RV industry, it's very difficult for manufacturers to get some type of a sealant that will flex with the temperature changes.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that we can do with a motorhome or a travel trailer is we let it just go with the ambient temperature. So, take for example, here the other day, it was, in the teens in the morning, and it got up to almost 60 degrees in the afternoon. And you imagine what happens with those materials in that RV. And you don't do that to your house. You let it, you climate control it. And so these sealants are going to move with the materials in there. So you got to find the stuff that's the right stuff to do that. And then eventually, the longer you keep it outside exposed to the sun, the more that stuff's going to harden, and then it's going to pull apart. That's when you really got to get up and do some work.
And that's what I was kind of saying, like even one of the reasons we started this is consumer education. So I had somebody say, hey, what sealant should I use? And I said, well, it depends on what type of roof you have. And then, there's, like you were saying, on a roof contractor, right? Is it a tile roof? Is it a shake roof? Is it an asphalt roof? Is it a flat roof? There's so many different types of roofs out there, and I think you got the Dicor.
There's Dicor, there's EPDM, there's Polar,
PVC.
There's PVC, there's Alpha Systems.
Yeah.
There's
and you remember how many TPOs we've gone through. You've got 10 more years on me than I do. But we had felt line backing TPO. We had a white felt. We had a gray felt. And they ran into issues with those, with having to replace them later down the road. So there's been a lot of controversy online about not doing anything to TPO. Hey, you don't have to do anything to it. And that's, again, some people like Pepsi, some people like Coke. It's either yes or no. Some of the owners were taking the Dicor Alpha Sealant or Secoflex sealant and scraping it off and just putting the Turnabond tape on. And I said that they're losing the adhesion quality, the thermal, qualities of that product at those joints and seams.
Yep.
So, it was, and then we all know if you don't clean and prep it right, it's going to fail. Once it shrinks up as time goes, it usually, what I've seen in California is it'll allow like a pencil-sized journal.
Yep.
And it'll lift. So it's shrinking inward and then buckling like my fingers would, and then lets water shoot up through one of those journals, and then it creates an air pocket and runs all the way down. And, the Turnabond will stick to anything. But the reason the Dicor gets so dirty, shrinks, dries, and cracks, and same thing for Alpha Sealant, is it has a petroleum, we'll just say it's got an oil chemical in it. When it gets hot, that oil bleeds out, which then lets it expand and contract. And as it cools back down, the oils bleed back in. Well, if it's dirty, the dirt's going to continue to extract that, which that causes it to shrink, dry, and crack. So keeping it clean and putting it on thick originally. I mean, how many times have we crawled up and seen a brand new coach and went, wow, they didn't really put any sealant on there or missed areas.
Yep.
You know, sorry for the rant, but
no, and that's fine. And you know, each manufacturer of these different materials that I've researched has a variety of different recommendations on what they want you to clean with. You know, you've got Alpha Systems wants you to use Murphy oil, soap, and water. You know, Dicor has their own cleaning materials. You know, you got Campco and all these other companies have rubber roof material, and that's kind of the generic. Even when you say PVC, it's a PVC and reinforced. It's still got a rubber characteristic to it. You know, in my opinion, what I've always used for the longest time is Dawn dish soap. You know, it's really good on tar, and you know, it's environmentally friendly. It won't damage your roof. A lot of the manufacturers recommend that. Someone want to sell their own stuff, but you know, and that's fine. But you know, I mean, if it's good enough for ducks in Alaska, it's good enough for my roof.
Even Simple Green too. You know, we use Dawn, we use Simple Green.
Yep.
You know, we also use all the different the two brands that I think have found the best for cleaning that I use or that I sell at the shop is the Thetford brand that used to be Protectol. That cleaner is strong. I mean, we'll spray it on a skylight that's all deoxygenated and watch it just take that and clean it right up.
Yep.
You know,
that's good. It's good stuff.
Good stuff. It's strong on the body, so be careful with it.
Yep. And
keep it wet.
Definitely be careful if you get up to do your own roof. You know, the first thing that I always do is I like to have a second person there, mostly because I like to have them wet the sidewall of that rig down. Because, you know, if you're up on top, especially with the rubber membrane that has a little bit of chalking on it, you know, when you start to clean that off, all that goes down the side. And if you got a dry sidewall, you got a mess trying to get that chalking off of the sidewall of that rig. So I have somebody that just kind of keeps walking around and rinsing that off and keeping it wet. And then, you know, I start from you put it at a little bit of an angle, at a slant, so it'll run off. I like to bring out the slide room if there's an awning on the slide room or even the slide room itself, so I can clean that while I'm up there. But you know, start at the front left-hand corner, do that, then the right-hand corner, back up. So you're always walking on dry roof material, and make sure you're walking towards your ladder. I've done that.
Front to back.
Let's go to the next question. We got Mike from Canada, and he wants to know what's the best way to insulate the floor of the rig for the Canadian winter. And in my opinion, the best way to insulate that is to take it to Florida. Oh, wait a minute. That's so what do you think? You don't get a whole lot of cold temperatures out there, but do you do any insulation on?
Well, we've got Tahoe and Reno and stuff close by, so
okay.
we have owners that do go to the snow a lot. Normally what we do is we'll open up the compartment doors, and you know how they're aluminum framed up underneath? We'll cut styrofoam insulation with the silver backing on it, so it kind of blends in with the aluminum, and then glue it all in place, you know.
Yep. Like reflex.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's the first thing I do is I always look at the compartment door, you know, because there's some really cheap doors out there that they've bought that are pencil thin and very little insulation in them. So they're not going to retain a lot of heat in that underbelly section much at all. And
resealing the coach too helps. I recently, one of the next shows we do, I'll show you, I bought a thermal camera and I'm doing a testing on like slide outs that are open and closed in the summertime. And now I'm doing it on open and closed in the wintertime. So you can see the difference in temperatures. So not having seams and moldings that are sealed properly, you know, or even injected in the corners. I like to, Dave, whenever I take something apart, if I can, I like to inject it in the corners with usually like some non-sag or silicone. I mean, I know it's a pain in the butt if you ever have to tear it apart, but it's watertight.
Yep. Yeah. The next thing then you look at what's the underskirting, and I'm not familiar with an Alliance, you know, but a lot of times. But I mean, I'm not familiar with what they use on the underbelly. Most of those are just going to put the corrugated plastic, you know, cover basically under there. But probably one of the best things you can do. Have you seen that new product, RV, is it RV skirt or RV? It's an inflatable tube that, you know, basically put underneath, and it will completely fill the entire underbelly of that rig. So you just, I mean, it's like a great big balloon. We'll have to look it up. We'll do a post on it and put something in there. But I saw it at Hershey. It's easy to travel with, because you let all the air out, and it's just like a big, you know.
So you're just running it underneath the fifth wheel and airing it up to.
Yep.
Like
It just balloons the entire underskirt, so it fills everything underneath there, so you don't get that cold air rushing through. Now you can go in and put skirting, you know, padded vinyl. I've seen people put snaps and Velcro and skirt the whole bottom all the way around it, but you still have that flap that can get some stuff underneath. This is literally, it goes underneath, and then you air it up. Air skirt. There you go. Thank you. I think Ashley probably found that in there. It's called air skirt. So take a look at that. Go underneath it, and you know, you have to have some kind of an air compressor that you know, or a really good set of lungs. But
if you ever get the opportunity to open up the underbelly, you know, on any RV, there's always room for improvements and modifications. So, I mean, you know, we used to offer a service day where we called it an air, bug, and dust intrusion service. And we would go through the coaches underneath and insulate them. You know, any of the holes that were going through the penetrations of the floor, we would seal them all off and try to block out anything from losing or gaining temperatures, you know.
Yep. All right, we got a Schwintek in-wall system from John. He's got a 2022 Grand Design Reflection with Schwintek. The main slide has a sag issue. When retracted, so back end, there is a 1-inch gap at the two edges between the slide and the bottom of the floor, but barely a few sheets of paper will clear at the center. Grand Design authorized a third Z bracket to be installed, but didn't do anything. Of the 4 white guide wheels, 2 are immovable, and Lippert says they are not weight bearing and should roll freely. Well, first of all, they are weight bearing, and they should roll freely. When on the video call with Lippert, they said the slide. We don't see the rest of the comment there, but anyway, John, the first thing I would recommend is to go onto Lippert's website, lci1.com, and go into their technical library. They have got a training video and training course on that whole thing, and it's outstanding. I think everybody that has a Schwintek slide mechanism should go in there and be familiar with, you know, what needs to be done with that thing. Schwintek says that they your rollers have to be within 6 inches from the sidewall, and then they have to be I believe it's 26 to 30 inches from there as well. And they are designed to hold the entire weight of the system. The 2 motors that are up in the wall are only going to move the room in and out. They are not supposed to have any weight whatsoever on them. There's a little V roller on the bottom of that jib, and the mechanism collar in there on the top and the bottom of it. Yeah. If there's any weight on those things in there, you are going to have problems. And so, you know, when whoever told you that they're not weight bearing, that was not correct. Yeah. They should roll freely, and they should have the entire weight of that room is on those rollers. And so, you know, that's the first thing that I would recommend. When you retract, so you bring it in, there's a 1-inch gap between the slide and the bottom of the floor. So there, again, somewhere you've got an alignment issue with that unit, and it's very possible. You know, I've seen in some situations with Lippert in their technical training side of it that I took, that there's H columns on the sides of that, and those were not installed properly. Yeah. Or the rivets or screws, and there's 2 different methods of holding this, have busted, and that thing is moving. So you really need to get in and go through that entire system and find out what is happening, you know, with that, because that shouldn't be happening.
Are you familiar with that?
Well, you just went. Your mic was off. Go ahead and start over.
Are you familiar with that Z bracket?
No.
So you know how they have a normal traditional, you know, I'm trying to get my hands right. The H column mounts to the wall.
Yep.
Well, basically now they just made like an L, and then they have a bracket that holds on to it. So it's not the full enclosure like it used to be. So what we're starting to see is the slide outs, as they're going in and out, they're actually walking on the walls, Dave, and they're pulling themselves loose. So owners are getting water damage behind them. They're coming loose. It's causing damage to the slide out rails and all that hardware. And you're 100% correct. The weight of that room must rest on that. So, in order for it to glide in and out. Now, I've seen issues where the floor, that's a vacuum bonded floor that's cut out to allow the roller to set into it. The rollers are buckled. The aluminum has our metal plates or aluminum, depending on what they used, had buckled, or the wall itself from travel, from the shake. So even though that room is in place, that room is still bouncing and shaking around in the coach, and it's compressing the rollers in the styrofoam floor down into it, and then it's causing those rollers to be miss height and not make contact. So he could have a roller issue, a floor issue. I've also seen some where the frame has lost the camber. Well, we went through like the whole like measurements for LCI.
Yeah.
And we actually took jacks and picked up the frame, and wow, everything's working right. So there's been all kinds of weird issues. With them.
So one of the things that we've got here, comment, we are having a drawing tonight, and we are drawing for a 2023 vintage camper calendar. And we had an overlay of it beforehand. In fact, here it is. Win this calendar, and make sure that you put in hashtag RV. And, just anywhere in this, you will be registered for that. Towards the end of this, we're going to do a drawing, and we just have this automatic program that goes through and sifts through and then picks out a random winner. And so make sure that you get in there and put in hashtag RV and win this calendar. So let's go to the next question here. And Jason brought up a deal here that says a lot of YouTube channels are recommending it. And Jason was the one that was talking about a Turnabond. And again, we'll get back to the fact that, you're going to find, my grandpa used to have some saying like, you're going to find 50% of the people that love it. You're going to find 50% of the people that hate it. And you're going to find another 50% of the people that have no comment. And that's like, well, but that's 150. So that's probably why he only went to 5th grade in country school. But, and the thing that we've been talking here amongst RV travel staff and writers and stuff is about how much information you see out on the internet that has, virtually no background to it, no research to it, just do it. And I'm not saying a Turnabond's bad. That's not, not the point.
We use it all the time.
Yeah, but to go up and just automatically everything all over the place, will it do damage? No. Right away. That's not what you were talking about, but looks of an RV, whether it's fading of the sidewall or it's just, cracking of the decals, but the looks of an RV are 75% of your resale value at times.
And that's going to scare anybody that's going to buy it. They're going to think automatically, what happened?
Yeah, it's going to look like you got leaks. And, and that's the thing with the internet is anybody can write anything.
And there's different mills on that too. So depending upon the brand, Dicor makes it, Alpha makes it. A Turnabond's just more of the well-known brand name.
Yep.
But there's a lot of companies that make that stuff, and there are different thicknesses of it. But again, to scrape it all off and to put it on something and remove the self-leveling sealant, don't do that.
Yeah, you're going to have problems after the fact, and if it's not an emergency, then it's not a good idea to put it up there. Mm-hmm. So CT says she has a 2015 Ford E350, and there is no red line on the tachometer. Do you have a good guess at where it should be? Mm-hmm. I would say it's just to the left of where it goes bang. That's usually a good indicator.
Good insurance, right?
Yeah, but. No, and it was kind of ironic because last night driving back, I've got my Silverado 1500 is gas, but it's got a tachometer too, and I was playing with different settings on. I was getting 7 miles a gallon, but I was going 70 miles an hour with it, so I did a little bit of testing. I went back down to 65 and I got up 2 to 3 miles a gallon better. I tried the towing thing, and what I noticed on the tachometer is, when it shifted out of the overdrive into, and I got an 8-speed transmission, it shifted out of the overdrive into the regular drive mode of that transmission, it would pop up into the 3,100 RPM. And that's when I noticed, I'd go to the miles per gallon settings, like, whoa, it was like flushing a toilet. It seemed like, and so, I mean, the gas stations love it. But when I was then in that overdrive on flat land, it was going back down into the 2,300 or so. And I kind of remember looking at that thing, and, I don't think that most of the new trucks these days actually have a red line anymore in them. But I remember driving a lot of trucks and a lot of heavy equipment. I drove cement trucks in and out of college, during breaks, pouring elevators at night, and you were really on. You wanted high RPM because you're hauling 9 yards of cement back there, and we were up in about, I think, if I remember correctly, 5,000 RPMs was where that red line was at, and a red line is just a recommendation, really. So, what are your thoughts?
What was that? I'm trying to think. Is it called a governor or
governor?
Governor.
Yeah, most diesels have a governor, which is just a I think it's electronic now, but it used to actually be a manual part on the cable that you could have the thing floored and it would only go to a certain RPM.
So much, yeah.
And I think
I think a lot of the newer vehicles might have something.
Well,
yeah. I think.
So one night I was coming home and I was on the back roads and I wanted to see what that pickup would do. And I got up to a certain speed, and I won't say what the speed was, but the engine shut down. And once I let off on the gas and it came back up to a certain point, it kicked back in. So, but that's on a gas. I don't think you're going to see that on the diesel. But if anybody else has got an F350, chime in there and we'll see. I do have some friends that haul a lot of stuff that do have the F350s, and I'll see if they have it. We'll see if we can post it. All right, so let's go to Eric. Whoops, what did I do? What do you guys think of replacement roofs like RV Armor and Flex Armor? And I know you do a lot of that stuff.
So we don't use those brands, but we use Tundra, which is a Sherman-Williams product. And before that, we were using a product called Gacko. The reason we switched to the Tundra was it had more of a shinier finish, and it seemed to repel the dirt more. It has a lifetime guarantee versus the Tundra, or the Gacko only had a 25-year. But I've tried all the different roof coatings, liquid roof that was back in the day that was popular, and then they were having issues with that, and a lot of the distributors stopped carrying it. And there's other ones, some of the Dicor ones, some of them work good, some of them don't work good. So,
well, and I think too, just to jump in here, the key on all of these roof materials out there is that the prep that you need to do. Exactly. And, if you've got lifts in your membrane now, if you've got delamination pockets and stuff that bubbles and things where it's loose, that is the biggest issue that I have seen on those ones. I just got a new product. It came in the mail. I have no idea where they got my mailing address, but it's called RV Roof. Yeah. And they sent a little kind of an emblem almost thing that's made out of this rubbery material. And, they all look good on paper. But the problem with some of those things is that you really can't tell how good they are until 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Yeah. And
the average person's only going to keep their coach, we'll say 3 to 5 years, maybe longer, but on average, we see in our industry 3 to 5 years. They either bought something too big or bought something too small, and they get out and use it and enjoy the lifestyle, and then they're either upgrading or downgrading.
Yep.
So what I can say to what I like about the coatings, 3 different directions I'm going to go with it. One, if your roof has lived past its 10, 12-year lifespan, or if it was not being taken care of correctly, or if there was something that was, caused it damage, those coatings are a really good option in lieu of replacing the whole roof. But again, make sure you're replacing everything up there before it gets coated. New skylights, new vent covers, that's your time to upgrade any fans or antennas or so on. Another option that we have, Dave, is people will come in because the coaches are too hot, and maybe it's a 30 amp coach and they can't add a secondary roof AC without a big expense. So a lot of times the coatings have a lot of thermal qualities to them.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, depending on how thick the roof is, so some of them claim, they'll reduce the interior temperature by 30%. And some of them do. We've tested it with a laser gun like you have. And so if you're looking to reduce the interior temperature on even a newer coach, that's an option.
Mm-hmm.
We offer a service that's called a rubber roof, basically a rubber roof preventive maintenance service, where we go up and we're scrubbing the sealants, scrubbing the roof, and it's like a detail, and then we protect it with all the UV treatments. And sorry, everybody, that's my little girl RV back here making all that noise.
You're just hungry.
It's my stomach grumbling. But so not, let's say you're somebody that doesn't necessarily, maybe it's an age factor or health thing, or you just don't want to deal with it. If you're in a dusty, dirty environment, like we were discussing earlier, if that sealant's getting hot and it's bleeding the oils out, the dust and dirt's going to stick to it. So the coatings not only coat the solid membrane, but that coats over all the existing sealants. If it's sealed thick enough prior to coating, then it's going to prevent less maintenance. So now you're not going to have to get up there and scrub all the individual seams, as well as scrub and continue to UV treat those surfaces. So there's a bunch of different benefits, but hopefully I answered that. Okay. Again, I'm still recovering from COVID. I'm on the tail end.
All right. Okay. So Calvin just posted a question. So why do some RVs draw voltage from the tow vehicle when not using shore power? And I just posted a question about that this morning. I'm pretty sure it went out, or it's going tomorrow. No, it was today, because I had somebody comment on my diagram was wrong. I had 2 5s in there. When you have a tow vehicle and it's got a 7-pin connection on the back end of it, the number 4 pin in the upper right hand corner normally is going to be a 12-volt positive source coming from your engine alternator back to that plug-in. Then your cord that goes into your tow vehicle needs to go back and has to be connected. And a lot of times there's a relay, or there's a DC to DC converter, or there's even a fuse, and you should get a charge from your battery while you're driving. And this even happens in motorhomes, with the BIM switch that's in their battery management system. Is it BIM? Battery
Energy management system.
The battery isolation manager.
Oh yeah.
So BIM, battery isolation manager. So your alternator, and I guess to answer your question, Calvin, it depends on your alternator, and it depends on your state of charge of your house battery, because your alternator is only going to put out so much, and sometimes it's so minimal of what it's putting out just to top off that car battery or tow vehicle battery, that by the time you get back to the trailer, you don't notice much of a charge.
Do you think he's referring to, he says tow vehicle, you think he's referring to like a motorhome with a tow car, or a travel trailer fifth wheel with a truck?
I think it's a truck and trailer, because then he mentions shore power.
Yeah.
So he's talking batteries in the travel trailer. So the way you check it, and if you look at the article, I've got the diagram that shows that there are you can get at auto stores and on Amazon a actual 7-pin tester. So you plug it in, and it will, all the lights and everything will tell you that they're working at the tow vehicle. You can do it with a multimeter as well. So you would just take a multimeter and check what your voltage is at the battery when the truck is running, tow vehicle, and then go back, and you should be able to verify it on that number 4 pin that you're getting it. And we've done some tests on different vehicles, and I've seen where it's gotten up into the 14-volt range. But again, that's what alternator do you have that's putting out that stuff? So you got to be able to verify it at the battery, and then you can verify it at the actual plug-in, and then plug the rig in and go to your battery on your trailer and see if you're getting that same voltage. If you're not, then probably somewhere between your plug and your battery, you've got a fuse or a relay that maybe has blown. So that's where you're getting that voltage at. So let's see. We had RV skirt that came up.
You can always undo the 7-way too if it's pulling voltage over the night.
Yeah.
Plugged in.
It doesn't sound like it's pulling voltage. It looked like he was asking why some do and some don't get voltage back there. But I think a lot of times you have to verify what you're getting from that alternator, and there's so many different sizes. And if you have a towing package, sometimes you get a bigger alternator with that towing package. And I know like the Mercedes, they have huge alternators because of the 2 battery system that they have in there. All right. So before we go on, I got Snoopy coming up here. I'll get to you in just a second, Snoopy, but we're at the 6:40 mark, and I want to do what we've had a lot of people have commented about the cool tools section. And so this week I do a seminar on cool tools and gadgets, and I have these big tool bag full of just all kinds of fun stuff. And this week, I am going to feature something that a lot of people take for granted. It's a battery liquid tester or battery fluid. And when I was writing the RV handbook, I did a lot of research with chassis manufacturers, truck manufacturers, and almost all of them recommend that you change the brake fluid. I said battery, didn't I? I think brake fluid every 5 years. And I asked them, we never did that. I mean, I had a gas station, I had cars. I mean, when was the last time you ever changed the brake fluid, Dustin?
It's been a lot. Well,
when it leaked.
But yeah, in my automotive days, we did that all the time as a service for the cars, but nobody ever thinks about that on a motorhome anymore.
Right. Well, and the reason is because your brake fluid can deteriorate.
Yeah.
Just like oil, it's going to break down. Mostly because you get moisture in it, whether it's condensation, heat changes. You think about the different temperatures that your brakes are going to take on, especially on a motorhome. Yeah. So what this tool is designed for is basically to check the moisture content and what is safe. And it's a little hard to see on this, but you have a dangerous and okay. And it looks like new on that battery. It needs a battery recharge on that system. But I think what we're going to go back to, I'm still working on, there we go, on my switchers here. But we will put a link to that unit in our recap when we have that. You can get it on Amazon.com. It's very inexpensive. And it's a good way to tell what your battery condition or your brake fluid condition is in. So
yeah, and not just in your motorhome. Now you can use it in your truck, your car.
Yep. All right, we're Snoopy, and just a little background of Snoopy. He and I have corresponded quite a bit over the last year here with questions and back and forth, and we found out Snoopy got his nickname in military services. He would take a Jeep up the hill, and they said he was bouncing around in that Jeep like Snoopy and the Red Baron, chasing the Red Baron. So that's where Snoopy got his nickname. And thank you for your service. So he says 4 USL16 390 amp hour 6-volt batteries and a 480 watt solar charger is always charging my house batteries. Will this hurt them while not in use? And hashtag mug, it's hashtag RV Snoopy today. So make sure you change that. It wasn't my idea, but I'm just I'm just an unfrozen caveman lawyer, the saying goes. Okay, so you got 4 6-volt batteries, and you got those hooked up in series. So positive to negative on the one group, that gives you a 12-volt bank, positive to negative on the second group, and then positive to positive and negative to negative on the 2 groups, which is parallel. And so you have with 390 amp hours total, I'm assuming that is. So you get 50% of that with your 6-volt lead acid batteries. 480 watt solar charger. Now that should have a charge controller.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
On that. And so I'm assuming with 480, you probably have 420 watt solar panels. And so that's that charging system. The way it works.
90s.
What's that?
Oh, wait, never mind.
Okay. The way that works is when you get sunlight on those crystals, it's going to go through that charge controller, and it will, if your batteries are down, it will give you, and they all vary, but let's say about 14 to 16 volts to charge that battery and to try and desulfate that or do what they call a bulk stage charge. And then when your batteries get to 12.6, that charge controller should drop to 13.2. And that's normal. 12.6 volts is your fully charged batteries, and they will not accept a charge at 13.2. So it's basically just a maintenance charge. So it's not uncommon. So that should not hurt your batteries. Now, the only thing that you want to make sure with those 6-volt batteries, it's very critical to check the fluids in those batteries because they are notorious for gassing, especially during that bulk stage, and then you'll deplete those, and that's when you can start doing some damage. Not just keeping the charge on it. Anything with that, Dustin?
No, I mean, you pretty much covered all of it. Just make sure you're maintaining your batteries, check your cables, make sure you're cycling the batteries up and down, and just, go out and use it.
Yep.
I mean, you keep in mind if you're plugged in all the time, you're always charging it that way as well as the solar. So those two are kind of competing with each other. Once in a while, disconnect a short cord, drain the batteries down for a little while. Hopefully it's not during peak sun hours, and deplete them so that you have the opportunity to let them recover, to cycle them.
Yep. So I'm just scrolling down here a little bit through some of the questions and the comments, and I see. Okay, Snoop. I was going to say the first one to put #RV is probably going to win, but now we do have a bunch of people that have put that in a little lower down. Eric says the air skirts are sweet.
All right,
and
I'm going to check that out. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, yep. Look, it's pretty cool. I saw them at Hershey, and I thought, well, that makes sense. So you blow up a balloon underneath it, and it keeps all the cold air from going underneath.
Your neighbor, shoots it.
Well, that's true. That shouldn't. You should have better neighbors in the RV industry. Snoop says, "Hey, someone is over talking both of you." That's probably the dog. If you still hear that, let me know. So here we've got John again. Here's the rest. It's the guide wheels, not the rollers. Good point. Okay. So the guide wheels are on the side. You've got upper and lower. The upper has the two motors. The lower has the gib and block. And then there's a roller that sits in a V channel. And you're right. Those are not weight bearing at all. The roller's underneath. So Lippert said, they said the slide floor will need to be repaired, redone, but GD discounted that comment and only authorized the Z bracket. I would get back in touch with Lippert again. And they may send you to a different dealer. I don't know if it's Grand Design that said that. And part of the challenge with the slide mechanisms that I have found is that, some of it is manufacturer responsibility. Some of it is slide room mechanism responsibility. So, with this one here, I strongly believe that it's Grand Design.
Yeah, you get a lot of, that's where I get frustrated a lot, is we get a lot of this back and forth and finger pointing. Is it the customer? Is it the manufacturer? So everybody's not wanting to pay for it.
Yeah.
It basically, it's like, find a dealer you're comfortable that knows what they're doing. If you have to initially authorize them, because you're going to need to get it repaired. So how about have them authorized to do what they need to do to it, document it, take pictures, take videos, and then go back to both those companies and just say, hey guys, let's make this right.
Yeah. And that's the key.
Most of the time they will, but it's a struggle. It's something that we deal with every day.
Yeah, the key, in my opinion, is just like you said, the dealer has to stand up and help you out because he's going to be able to get both of them going in. Now, we just got this back from Snoop here. He said, need to call your sound engineer. Mike Sokol to the rescue. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know. Is anybody else having an audio problem? If Snoopy's having one, sometimes it's a second computer being on or a second program being on, and you might want to log out and come back in and see if that's working. But I know we've got a couple other people that are part of the RV staff that are in the background listening, and I don't see any comments that we're having a problem from anybody else. So try that and see what happens there. So we've got a whole bunch of RV hashtags coming in here. All right. And Krista is from Chandler, Arizona. And I bet, Krista, it's a lot nicer where you're at than it is here at we're currently at 15 degrees. So we're having a little bit of a heat wave, but it hasn't been quite that bad. But anyway, what do you expect? We're in Northern Iowa. So great to have you with us. Charles, thanks for coming on. Jeffrey now has a question for Dustin on September 29th. So before we do this question, this is kind of indicative of the RV industry today. We were working on a coach that had some leveling jacks, HWH leveling jacks. And in September, I called to find out, I needed to find out if that jack had a hollow center where hydraulic fluid went down the center because they bent the jack and we needed to cut it off. And I wanted to find out if it had hydraulic fluid in it that pushed it back up. September, I left a message twice, got no response back. The owner got anxious, cut the jack off, and sure enough, hydraulic fluid was in it. Started on fire. Luckily, didn't start anything else on fire. You got it out right away. And so, we needed to replace the thing anyway, and luckily the things were in. Yesterday, I got a call from HWH calling me back from September on their technical support line, November 29th. So anyway, nice. All right. So we have Jeffrey says, Dustin, on the September made me think of that. What's in the shop? You showed a Newmar motorhome with the screws, flat floor molding were not sealed. Do you recommend that the screw heads be sealed with Dicor?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. If anything's not
all right, we're going to the next question. Thanks for that in-depth explanation. So what do you feel it?
If depending on where the screw's located at, and I don't remember the picture exactly, but I think it was on a fan, on like a Fantastic fan, where they had sealed like the perimeter, but they didn't seal the screws, or it may have been a molding like that. So I would definitely go back and seal it. Again, keep in mind, we see so many different lines of coaches and brands out there. And, I don't want to say it's a production issue, but sometimes they'll put the sealant on real thin because it takes it requires time to dry in order to get it out of the assembly plant. So, the catch is triple check it. If you think it needs to be sealed up, by all means, seal it up. Just don't put any Eternabond tape on it. No
Eternabond. All right. So Terry Haynes said had to talk to the boss. Now he's back. Well, now I feel your pain. I have TPS tire pressure monitor system on all the tires. Will and have had bearings repacked. Cool. I have slipper springs and disc brakes. I have changed bearings once and new tires also. And I don't remember what he had. Okay.
I think he had an Alpenlight? Or no?
Nope, I don't remember that. But so just got a little note here. We only have 7 minutes left, 6 minutes now. So it's time for our giveaway, our prize drawing. So with that, I am going to make sure Ashley can take and run, our preview there for everybody. #RV, and she is going to let it go right now. And let's see who wins. Hey, I don't see my name in there. Brett Bailey. All right. And Brett's one up for the for a question coming in. So Brett, if you will email your address to editor@rvtravel.com, and somebody there, Chuck, whoever is going to send you that beautiful vintage calendar. Some really cool units on that thing. So let's get back to the questions. We got a few here that we want to try to get through pretty quick. Brett, congratulations.
Yeah.
15K Dometic air conditioner. Problem during camping this past summer. The AC cools fine, except during heavy rain. Soon after a heavy rainstorm, the compressor stops running. After several hours with just the AC fan running, sometimes the next morning, the compressor kicks back on and the AC cools fine again. It runs great until a heavy rain. I thought maybe rain was entering around gaps around the AC cover and flooding some electronics. Have you ever run into that?
I mean, not really as far as running the air conditioner in the rain itself, but I get it if it's humid and it's hot and, you know, you got to run it. But maybe there's just some kind of temperature issue. So I would say check the connections, maybe use some kind of electrical dielectric grease or something on them. Call Dometic tech support, get the model and serial number off the unit.
Yep.
And tell them what's going on, because if it's a new unit, even if it's 2 years old, the bad thing is our industry doesn't communicate enough with the consumers, and the consumers don't communicate enough with the companies. So anytime there's some weird problems, the more they can hear about it, the more that they can address it in a quicker manner.
Yeah. And I would imagine that Dometic has probably come into this. It's got to be a moisture penetration somewhere in that. And, you know, the first thing I would do is I would take the shroud off.
And is it a low profile with the, you know, with the big fan?
Yeah. Is it
the
Penguin? Is it the, you know, yeah, you got to get your model number, call Dometic, but I would take the shroud off and just check that top piece. Cause the way your air conditioner is set up, and I'm going to take this off. The way your air conditioner is set up is you've got the evaporator coil in the front section, and then, you know, right behind that is your motor, compressor, the fan. Everything is right in that center piece, and then the fan comes off back here, and then you got your evaporator, your condenser on the backside. So evaporator in the front, condenser in the back. So if you're getting, you know, you've got a shroud that's got a crack in it on the top, on the front here, you could get moisture coming in, and typically you got vents on the side, so you could get water splashing in, but it, you know, that compressor is pretty weatherproof. Yeah. And so I would imagine that you've got a, like you said, you got a connection somewhere that's just getting enough of a moisture to create an open contact, it's called.
And it could even be in the umbilical cord too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
So
but,
I mean,
check and make sure you're not getting excess water from the top, but you want to check and be very, very careful. If you're going to do this yourself, make sure it's unplugged, so that you're not sticking anything and pulling any wires off that are hot in that system. But clean all those contacts real well. Make sure all those connections are good.
Be careful with the run capacitor.
Yeah. You know, so the other, you know, if you were to take it into a service center like Dustin's, they're going to go in and they're going to put a meter on it and find out, you know, do you have voltage coming to that? You know, what's the problem here? And, you know, when it does run, what's the amp draw? You know, it might be something where it's high amps too.
Yeah. It could just be something electrical that's something new. You know, it could be a connection issue. It could be some kind of a temperature probe issue. I mean, you know, is the gasket torqued down tight enough? Keep in mind that, you know, when manufacturers get a diesel truck full of air conditioners, sometimes they get dropped or shaken or put on there. You know, they're in a hurry when they're plugging stuff in. So there may be something that's loose. So that's where doing, you know, any appliance, doing a service on your air conditioners. What we like to recommend, Dave, is every 5 years replacing your AC gasket. And then, you know, cleaning the air conditioner, depending upon the use, at least once a year.
Okay. So we're running. We got 1 minute left. John here is great point. He's got the V10 6.8 liter, that 4,700 RPM is a reference on his. Got just a note here, says time to wrap it up. So we're really close. I just had one more comment I wanted to find on here. We have Calvin says truck batteries feeding the RV when the truck is off. There, I would say somewhere you got an issue with the the back feed going in, and you need to take a look at that. So we are at 7 o'clock. I'm sorry we're running out of time. 40-foot fifth wheel. Everybody, I thank you for coming out. We appreciate you being here, and congratulations to Bailey, I believe it was Britt Bailey. There she is. And next week, join us again. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, and we have the holidays coming up. And tell your friends about us. Go to the newsletter. Send us questions. Snoop, I haven't got a question for a while because I'm getting a little concerned. So I'm glad you showed up tonight. I was going to have to send the medics out to find you. So anyway, thank you for coming, everybody, and appreciate it. And have safe travel.